It's Thursday, and you know what that means? It is once again time for me to talk Machina and shared my first impressions of Vox Machina Season 3. The usual disclaimers apply. There will be spoilers ahead, so if you haven't seen Season 3 of Vox Machina, episodes 10 through 12, you might want to stop the video here because I'm going to spoil the heck out of it. As the title of this video suggests, these are my first impressions. My thoughts and opinions might change later, specifically when I actually review the season in a couple of weeks. And last but not least, I am yet to see the corresponding episodes of Campaign 1 of Critical Role. So there might be some things that I point out, have theories on, have thoughts on, that might be clearly explained and clearly expanded upon in the campaign. So bear with me. I will check out the corresponding episodes after I finish watching Season 3 of The Legend of Vox Machina, which is now. So I'll be watching those very, very soon. And one more thing before we get going, an announcement, just in case any of you missed it. Yesterday, it was announced that Prime Video has officially picked up The Legend of Vox Machina for Season 4. Yes, we're getting Season 4. Which is awesome in itself, and I'm very happy. Yes, part of me also is really, really hoping that they'll also pick them up for Season 5 so they can finish the story. But for now, I am thrilled that next year we're getting more Vox Machina. But that's enough. Let's jump right into this, starting with To the Ends of the World. So here, each episode picks up where the last one left off. This one, no exception. We start with Rayshawn's betrayal. Everything Keyleth was saying was correct. Rayshawn was not on the up and up. She was not trustworthy. They never should have relied on her. At the end of the day, she was only in it for her own gain. And lo and behold, right after they defeat Thordak, Rayshawn steals his dead body and leaves. Vax tries to console Keyleth, but Keyleth is not having it. She is pissed. She warned them, they didn't listen to her, and now Rayshawn has gotten away with Thordak's body, and she's gonna do God's knows what with that body. So Keyleth is so pissed off that she turns into an eagle and just flies away and abandons the team. We cut right away to Greyskull Keep, the home of Vox Machina, which we haven't seen since last season, since Virgal destroyed it. So we find it in shambles. And Grog, Pike are looking over Scanlan's prone body, with unconscious body, which is still in a coma that they can't explain. While Vexalia and Vax'ildan are outside just trying to figure out what they're going to do next. Vexalia basically admits that all she wants to do is get revenge on Anna Ripley for killing Percy. Vax says, whatever you want, sister, I'm here for you. So the two of them fly off on their own, leaving the last three members on their own in Greyskull Keep. So the bulk of this episode is intercutting between what Keyleth is doing and what the twins are doing. So let me very quickly cover what Pike and Grog do during this time, and then I'll jump to those in one unified block. In unified blocks, I should say. Anyway, point is, Grog gets the brilliant idea to grab Scanlan and shake him to wake him up. Of course, that doesn't work, but all of the music that Scanlan writes falls out of his pockets. Kaylee's song lands right in front of Pike, and Pike gets an idea. Cut to some other location that is yet to be identified. Dr. Dranzel is in his hotel room, I want to call it, about to turn in for the night, wearing nothing but a towel, and Alora Vysoren and Pike teleport into his room, scaring the hell out of him, and Pike asks, where's Kaylee's room? And he says, 6. And she leaves very awkwardly, and then Kima just stays there looking at him, and she says, I'm her ride, which was hilarious. Great read from Indira Varma. Anyway, so Pike meets with Kaylee, and she tells him about Scanlan, about all the times that he has tried to meet up with Kaylee and talk to her and spend time with her, but missed her, or there was a misunderstanding and things didn't work out. And throughout the conversation, Kaylee starts to get the sense that maybe Pike has feelings for Scanlan, which immediately scares the crap out of Pike, which pretty much confirms that Kaylee is correct. But no time for that. We cut away after Kaylee has officially agreed to go and see Scanlan. Anyway, so Keyleth goes to Sephra, that's where she's from, and meets with her dad, Corin, played by the great Fred Tatasciore, who tries to give her advice and tries to make her feel better. But then suddenly, throughout the course of their conversation, he lets it slip that the Ashari have a spell that allows you to find anyone anywhere, but it's incredibly difficult, and you have to get permission from the Council of the Ashari to perform said spell. So Keyleth is very gun-ho. He says, I want to find Rayshawn, I want to take her out, round up the council, I want to talk to them, I want to get permission to do this spell. And so we get to see the different chapters of the Ashari together. I'm pretty sure that her dad, Corin, represents the Air Ashari. We see Sarkonos, which we met before, who is the head of the Fire Ashari, played by Robbie Damon. We meet Urenda, Headmaster Urenda, played by Tamara Podensky, who I want to say is the head of the Water Ashari, and also Passia, played by the great Deborah Wilson, who is the head of the Earth Ashari. So Keyleth steps up, she pleads her case, and they turn her down flat. No, this is too dangerous, you're not ready, you haven't even finished your Aramente yet, go away. So Keyleth goes away, she has this quiet, solemn moment on her own when suddenly she has a memory of her mother and how great she was, and she's like, no, I'm going back in and I'm going to ask them again. So she goes to talk to them, and this time she really puts her foot down and says, it's not up to you, it's up to everyone. So I want to hear from everyone in this council that I am not allowed to do this spell. What she says appeals to Patisse, and she agrees to take on all the responsibility of teaching Keyleth this very dangerous spell, and they go off together to a sacred cave to do so. When they get to the cave, it's full of all these statues of people with horrific expressions on their faces. Turns out that those are all the people that have tried this spell before. But that doesn't deter Keyleth. Basically, what she has to do is let herself sink into the earth and connect with the earth to find anyone on its surface. However, if you don't maintain control, the earth will reclaim you and you will die. You'll become part of the earth again, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. But that doesn't scare Keyleth. She keeps going. She keeps trying it over and over again. She nearly dies a couple of times. And then finally she starts to connect with the earth, and she sees all the ley lines that are all over the inside of the planet. And through one of the ley lines, she sees Vex and Vax, and that they are in trouble. Cut to Vex and Vax. So Vex and Vax go to Steel Bend. For those of you who don't know, Steel Bend is the location where Campaign 1 first starts back when they were playing it as a home game. This was the first, where their first adventure took place that began the campaign. This is the location where a lot of the members that would go on to become Vox Machina met. In this location, Vex and Vax originally in the campaign met Keyleth, Tiberius, Stormwind, Grog, and Scanlan. Percy and Pike that met later in another adventure. I want to say their next adventure, the search for Grog, I want to say. Anyway, so you go to Steel Bend. They're looking around in cloaks and hoods, scoping out the place. We get the third Matt cameo for the season, this time as a barroom brawler who spills out of the bar. During this skirmish, Vexalia spots Tabexi, a cat person, named Katari? Yeah, Katari. Named Katari, who has a paper box strapped to his back. So she gives the signal to Vax. Vax follows him. He follows him into this like remote cabin type location. But Katari had him scouted, grabs Vax, they get into a little skirmish. It seems like Katari has the upper hand, but Vax knows that Katari is a member of the class, so he gives them the secret code. Katari gives them the countersign, and they're buddies now. In spite of a little mix-up with Vexalia nearly killing Katari, thinking that Katari was really attacking Vax. Anyway, because they're both members of the Clasp, the super secret thieves guild in Exandria, Katari agrees to help them out, and he tells them that he got that pepper box from a ship that rolls into port. Every great now and then. It has no markings, no flags. It comes in, sells the pepper boxes, and goes away. So Vex and Vax start staking out the docks, waiting to see if this ship shows up. And Vexalia is getting really, really antsy. So Vax tells her, okay, just sit here, keep an eye on the docks. I'll go scout around and ask questions, see if I can find out exactly when this ship is coming in. So he leaves. She's still getting antsy. She really wants to do something to avenge Percy. She wants to be active. Otherwise, she would just feel the grief. So she leaves her post and she tries to sneak past some sailors who showed up. And the ship rolls in, but she gets spotted. She gets caught. They tie an anchor around her ankles and they're about to push her off of the pier when Vax shows up in one of the most awesome disguises ever to try and rescue her, but they see through his disguise. They get into a fight. Vexalia almost drowns. He rescues her. She apologizes, but there's still more bad guys coming, so the brawl continues. But there's a moment where the ship is getting away because things have gotten too hot. They got to get out of there. So Vexalia needs to get on that ship now, but Vax is in trouble. Big Orc has him in a sleeper hold. So Vexalia has to pick whether to follow the ship or save her brother, and she chooses to save her brother, so the ship seemingly gets away. However, Vex and Vax nowadays can fly, so they take off flying after the ship. They catch up with it, they're sneaking around, and it's all quiet, and all of a sudden, boom, Anna Ripley is right there on the ship. She was the captain of the ship all along, was always on it. They think they have the upper hand, but they don't. They're completely surrounded, and like Keyleth saw when she was connecting with the Earth, they are in trouble. Moving on to Deadly Echoes. So like I said before, all three of these episodes take off where the last one left off. We start with Vex and Vax surrounded by Ripley and her men. There's just too many people, so they get captured, and it really seems like hope is lost, but Vax calls his daggers back into his hands, and dagger, dagger, dagger. The fight continues. Everybody's shooting at Vex and Vax. They grab a really big guy and use him as a human shield, as a meat puppet, and as a meat shield, I should say. And they get under there, and they stay under there for quite a bit because we cut to other things. Back to Sephra with Keyleth. She is struggling with this spell, trying to connect with the Earth, and it's killing her when Patisse suggests that she focus on the people that she loves, on the people that keep her tethered to the Earth, and she sees a vision of Vax, and she confesses that she loves him. Cut to Greyskull Keep. Pike has returned with Allura and Kaylee. They walk inside, and they find Grog frozen in place, exactly where Pike left him when she said, "Don't move from that spot, I'll be right back." He took it literally, so he stood in that exact same spot while she was out. And I think that's a reference to Travis Willingham's ability to stand still, perfectly still for a really long time, like he did during the campaign when Vox Machina went to the Fey Realm, which was insanely impressive. I think a fairy turned Grog into stone, so Travis stayed perfectly still in stone, frozen, for a while until he was unfrozen. It was amazing. Anyway, point is, so Kaylee comes in, she sits down and talks to the unconscious Scanlan for a couple of minutes, and he wakes up. Now, do you guys remember how I said last video that I had a theory about why Scanlan wasn't waking up and what was actually happening? And I would let you know what the theory was and whether I was wrong or right. I was wrong. My theory was that because Scanlan feels like a failure and he feels like he has nothing to live for, so he has no connection to his daughter, the one person that should matter the most. He falls unconscious and gets stuck in the soul plane and is having doubts whether or not whether he should just cross over or go back to the world of the living. And while he's there, he would have stumbled upon Percy's soul, which, if you remember, Percy was killed by Anna Ripley's gun shortly after she explained to him that all the pepper boxes that she built under Orthax's tutelage, all the people that those guns kill, their souls go to Orthax. So that means that Percy's soul never actually crossed over. It is stuck in limbo or under the possession of Orthax, which I was right about that. But what I was not right about was that I believed that it was Scanlan, while unconscious and his soul being stuck in the soul plane, was going to stumble upon Percy being trapped there, and he was going to be the one to save Percy. So that was my theory, and I admit it, I was wrong. Meanwhile, Keyleth finding the connection to her friends was the last piece of the puzzle. Connecting to them helps her connect to the earth, and she uses that newfound power to find Rayshawn, finds her. So she reemerges, this time as an earth elemental. And not only has she found Rayshawn, but she also passed her earth trial as part of her Aramente. So I believe that's 2 more trials to go. I assume, even though she's an Arashari, I don't think she's passed her air trial. And of course, then there's her water trial, which I'm really sure she has not faced yet. Anyway, but now that she knows where Rayshawn is and that her friends are in trouble, she needs to round up Vox Machina and go get Rayshawn. She asks if there's any way that she can use to communicate with them, and Patisse informs her, hey, you have passed your earth trial. You have new abilities. There are better ways that I can teach you. Wink, wink. So we cut to the ship with Anna Ripley. The gun battle is happening. Things are getting really intense. Ripley and her men are not doing well, so Ripley opts to shoot the kegs full of black powder. The black powder ignites and the ship starts to catch fire. Everything starts to explode. Cut back to Greyskull Keep. Everybody's having a good time. Scanlan is recuperating, eating a big loaf of bread when suddenly trees start to grow into his room, and Keyleth's face appears in the leaves and tells them that she needs them to go to Sephra right away. Back on the ship, the battle keeps raging on between Vex, Vax, Ripley, and the remainder of her men. Vax seems to be the only one quick enough to keep up with Ripley, as she has Cabal's Ruin to give her speed and to help her deflect magic. And while he's fighting her, he hears Percy's voice come out of her gun. So this is when he figures out what I figured out last week, that Percy's soul is actually in the gun, or in possession of Orthax, who is also in the gun. Anyway, so they do battle, and they are wrecking each other, just wounding each other left and right. It's a miracle nobody dies during this battle. And eventually, Ripley gets the upper hand. She slams Vax into a flight of steps. They shatter to pieces, and they shatter to splinters, and he's laying there, and she points her gun at him, and it really seems like she has the upper hand, when suddenly Vax reveals that he was just distracting her. She looks up and she sees Vex rising out of the water with her bow and arrow. She tries to speed away with Cabal's Ruin, but Vax stapled her cloak to the deck of the ship, so she can't move. Vex lets go of her arrow, and it hits Ripley square in the chest, shooting her with the very siege arrow that Percy made for her. When she flies back with the arrow in her chest, she drops her gun, it lands on the deck of the ship, and it slides. I think Vax immediately goes and grabs it because he heard Percy's voice. But when she falls back, Cabal's Ruin falls off of her, so she no longer has the speed. So she falls back, and she's wounded and she's laying there, and Vexalia stands over her, and now her position has changed. She is now the one that is at her attacker's mercy. And she says, my work could have made this world a better place. This world would be a better place with Percy in it. And she shoots Anna Ripley right in the mouth, and just staples her through the back of the head onto the ship. The ship is on fire. It is sinking. So Vex and Vax have to get the hell out of there. Vax has the gun in one hand, grabs Vexalia with the other, and flies off. And I'm really, really sure they allowed Cabal's ruin to just sink under the waves, which makes me sad because that's my favorite of the vestiges of Divergence. But anyway, among many things, he also found the little bag of holding, little satchel of holding that has Vexalia's broom in it. So she gets on her broom and he uses his wings and they fly to this nearby island where they have another heart-to-heart and just expressing their feelings and where they're at emotionally right now, when suddenly Keyleth's face comes out of the ground and calling them to Sephra. We cut right away to Sephra. Vox Machina is once again reassembled, sans Percy. And basically Keyleth tells them that she's found Rayshawn's location and they need to go get her. They have one more dragon to kill. Everybody agrees and they tree portal over there. What is this location? Unfortunately, they don't say in the show. I don't know what it is yet. I'm sure I'll find out when I watch the campaign. If any of you guys want to tell me in the comment section, feel free. If you don't, no big deal. But I'm a little curious. Anyway, in this location where Keyleth knows that Rayshawn is, they find a ziggurat. Another one. Not to be confused with a zipper twat. Anyway, they go inside and they find her and she's performing some kind of an arcane ritual with Thordak's dead body. Keyleth approaches her directly, and Vox Machina is sneaking around the side. All of a sudden, she throws some magic. She opens a portal to space, I think. Magic comes from space and shoots Vox Machina. It seems like she TPK'd them all. It was a TPK. And Keyleth is left alone to fight her. And you think, oh no, Keyleth is screwed. No, she's not. Keyleth makes icicles grow out of the ground and impale Rayshawn from every angle, and then does grasping vines. The vines go around Rayshawn's neck and snap her neck. Boom, boom. Killed her in 2 moves. It was badass. But unfortunately, while that was Rayshawn's body, Rayshawn wasn't home. She completed her arcane ritual and her soul left her body and went into Thordak's dead body. So now Thordak's decomposing corpse reanimates, giant zombie dragon lands in front of them, and now it's Thordak's very powerful body with Rayshawn's very devious and intelligent mind. A new entity that I like to call Radak. And that's when they hit the big to be continue that leads into the final episode, Souls in Darkness. So yet again, like I said before, we pick up exactly where the last episode left off. Keyleth is alone to fight Radak, but that is not the case. Vox Machina, of course, didn't TPK. They're fine. They come out of their hiding places and they start fighting Radak together. But there's a twist. The vestiges of Divergence don't work on Radak. Rayshawn thought of that as part of that. Yes, she told them about the vestiges because they could beat the other members of the Chroma Conclave, but not her. And they are hitting her with everything they got. Nothing's doing anything. Not even the plate of the Dawn Martyr does absolutely nothing. Eventually, Radak casts this magical barrier and traps everybody except for Keyleth on the other side of this barrier. So once again, it's one-on-one between Keyleth and Radak. Keyleth, of course, is trying all of her best tricks. She turns into Lynxie. She turns into her fire elemental form. None of those things are working. And eventually, she catches a glimpse of Rayshawn's decomposing corpse just laying right there still with the poison that she had in her body. And Keyleth gets an idea. So as this is happening, the rest of Vox Machina is trying to figure out how to get to her. Vexalia suggests to Grog to punch through the barrier, and Grog powers up the Titan Stone Knuckles and starts punching the barrier, getting closer and closer to one of the runic stones that's holding the barrier up. And Vax is at the ready to go and help Keyleth the moment the barrier goes down. Keyleth jumps in front of Rayshawn's corpse. Radak shoots more magical flame at her. The flame is getting closer and closer and closer. The Grog is getting closer and closer and closer to knocking down the rune. The rune gets knocked down. The barrier goes down. Vax flies over there to try and rescue her, but the flames hit her and Rayshawn's corpse and obliterate them. And Vax is just stunned, just completely broken when he sees this happen. And very graphically, the charred remains of Keyleth are left frozen in place. But that was just a decoy. Keyleth is fine. She went Earth Elemental, went underground, and those were just Earth constructs that she made. But now that Rayshawn's body with the poison in it has been turned to ashes, and the ashes have returned to the Earth, and it's part of the Earth, so they are part of Keyleth. So Keyleth emerges from under Radak, jabs her Earth Elemental hands into Radak, and starts pumping the poison that was originally in Rayshawn's original body into her new body and Thordak's old body, and starts using the very thing that was killing her to finish her off. All the poison is coursing through her body, and eventually she just collapses and dies pathetically. How you want to do this? Very cleverly. Vax rushes over, grabs Keyleth, takes her in her arm, and they share a very passionate kiss. And in true Matt Mercer style, it is immediately undermined by Keyleth feeling the effects of the poison that ran through her body and into Radak. And the moment that her and Vax stop kissing, she starts throwing up like a fountain. And we get a reprisal to one of the first lines in the show when Keyleth first throws up in the tavern, in the first scene where we see Vox Machina in the show, where Pike says, "So chunky." And once again, Vax Holdan says, "So chunky." We cut to Whitestone, where our heroes are recuperating. Vax is keeping Keyleth company while she's in bed resting, getting some much-deserved rest after defeating a dragon pretty much single-handed. And he sees Anna Ripley's gun. He takes it in his hand, and he asks the Matron of Ravens for guidance, how to get Percy's soul back. The Matron of Raven tells them that there's a way, but warns them that if Vax brings Percy back to life, there will be a price. Vax doesn't care. He calls a meeting, he lets everybody know what's happening with the gun and with Orthax, and that he wants to attempt to bring Percy back. That if Pike can regenerate his body, he can get his soul back, using the power granted to him by the Matron of Ravens. So they start a resurrection rite. Pike restores Percy's body, put them side to side with Vax. Vax goes into the soul realm, or more than likely this is Orthax's realm, where it's this nightmarish place full of black smoke, where we see all the people that were killed by pepper boxes incarcerated. Stonefell, Dr. Anders, the list goes on and on. Vax searches through there and finally finds Percy, and Percy's forever making pepper boxes for Orthax for all eternity. That's his punishment. And Vax wants to reach him, but something is just not allowing him to. Percy is just not lucid. He doesn't recognize Vax, and he feels like he really needs to do this and punish himself for the rest of his time, for the rest of all time. Anyway, so back in the real world, they really need to finish this resurrection right now, otherwise it won't work. So Vexalia goes to Percy's body and starts talking to it and admits that that moment in Singorn when Percy stood up to her father on her behalf was one of the greatest moments, and that she thought that he was one of the most wonderful and intelligent men she's ever known. And finally, she says the words that she should have said before Percy died unceremoniously in that mine, which is, "I love you, darling." And she says this, she drops a tear, the tear goes to fall on Percy's body, but then it continues to fall, and it lands in Orthax's realm, right on the pepper box that Percy's building, and that snaps him out of it. He turns, he sees Vax struggling, trying to get to him, and they do the clasp. "Derolo, you son of a bitch." Predator style, baby. So the moment those two clasp, Orthax screams, "Ah, no!" They come back to the real world, and seemingly Orthax is defeated, or at least it looks like he was defeated. Technically, it looked like he was defeated last time when they threw the pepper box in the acid, or Scanlan threw the pepper box in the acid. So we'll see. I don't know. Don't spoil it for me. As far as I know, he's defeated. But I hope not. It'd be cool to see him come back. Anyway, point is, our two heroes come back to life and everything seems okay. However, sometime later, we see them in Greyskull Keep. Percy's recuperating. His body's still not back to its full strength yet. And Vax comes in, shows up to let him and Vexalia know that Scanlan is has set up dinner in the Chateau de Shorthalt. And it's an all-chicken dinner, because that's all that the chateau makes. And let's go ahead and go in and have a good time. And as they're going in, we reveal that all is not well in Exandria. Yes, there was a price for bringing Percy back to life, and that is that corruption is spreading all over Vax's body, and he's covering it up with the Deathwalker's ward. So we'll see where that goes. Anyway, so they go into the Chateau de Shorthalt. Everybody's having a good time. Gilmore shows up, which is always wonderful. Calls Scanlan the Meat Man, which is his nickname in the campaign. Finally makes it into the animated series. And all of a sudden, Scanlan announces that he's leaving Vox Machina. This is something that I knew was coming and that I was dreading, because Scanlan is my favorite character. But from what I hear, it's one of the best arcs in the campaign, and I'm sure they're going to do it justice in the animated series, so I'm not going to judge it until I see it next season, which has already been approved, so we're going to get to see it. So basically, he feels like he's a better person when he's with Kaylee, so he wants to try to be a father to her for at least some time, at least until Vox Machina needs him again. But while the Chroma Conclave is dead, while the Briarwoods are dead, while Orthax is seemingly dead, he wants to take a break and be a father for a while. And then, right after that, Vax and Keyleth announce that they're also taking off. Keyleth wants to go and finish her Aramente, and Vax wants to go with her. While Vexalia and Percy are not leaving Vox Machina, they do plan to go to Whitestone for a bit, just two of them, to celebrate winter solstice with Cassandra, Percy's sister. So the only people staying in Greyskull Keep are Pike and Grog. So we close off with Scanlan finally playing Kaylee's song, and it is beautiful. Another beautiful song written and composed by Sam Riegel and Peter Habib. Beautiful. Of course, it was worth the wait. And that goes into a montage of all the characters going their separate ways. We get one final hint that Vax is not okay. The corruption is spreading. And Keyleth is blissfully unaware. And we see our heroes going their separate ways. And it seems like the show has ended, but we get an epilogue. We cut to some temple somewhere. I don't think it's the ziggurat that's under Whitestone, because I feel like somebody like Keeper Yenin or Gilmore or Alana Vysoren would have detected it, but we see this temple somewhere, and the spinning ball of doom that used to be under Whitestone is there. And there's all these acolytes worshiping it and praying to it, praying to the Whispered One. And by the way, that little amulet that Xerxes gave to Pike is the symbol of the Whispered One. And as these guys are worshiping and chanting and praying to the Whispered One, suddenly we get a quick glimpse of him. We get a quick glimpse of Vecna, the final boss, the final baddie for what will hopefully be season 5 of The Legend of Vox Machina, and we cut to black. End of season 3. Woo! I have to say, so far, this has been my favorite season. Seasons 1 and 2, amazing. The whole show is amazing, but this one in particular was incredible, supremely epic, very efficient in telling lots of story in short increments of time. Unbelievable, especially the first 3 and last 3 episodes. So much happened in just those 6 episodes. It's incredible. I think people learning writing and learning economy of story should study those 6 episodes. I won't reveal my favorite episode just yet. I plan to reveal that when I do my honest review. And the question is, when will my honest review be? Well, I'm going to reveal it to you right now. My honest review of The Legend of Vox Machina Season 3 will be on Wednesday, November the 13th. So mark your calendars. I will have that ready for you on this very YouTube channel. It's been an absolute pleasure to ramble to all of you, tell you how I feel about this season, sharing my experience with you. Another question that I've been getting repeatedly is, when I start watching the campaign, will I do a Twitter thread like I did last time when I was watching the campaign and sharing my thoughts and reactions to going through that experience? I absolutely will. So keep an eye on my Twitter page. For those of you who don't know my handle, it is at erodbuster1. So there you go. You can follow me and you can get all my comments and reactions about the corresponding episodes of Campaign 1. Thank you guys. Thank you guys for listening to me. I love talking about the show, as you might have gathered. I cannot put into words how much the show means to me. And I say this with the utmost seriousness and without hyperbole. This show has saved my life. This show has been instrumental in getting me through these past 3 years. These past 3 incredibly difficult years. So thank you to the creators and cast of The Legend of Vox Machina and Critical Role. You always give me something to look forward to, and I appreciate it. And right when I think that I'm out of things to look forward to, hey, I realize that it's almost Thursday.